Okay, so let me introduce Dr. Ranju Rangan. Dr. Ranju Rangan has PhD and he has been working on migration and diaspora for last at least 15 years. More than that, he has been a migrant for last several years. In fact, his father also a migrant. So they have experience of what is migration and international migration. And even he's also part of so many projects involving migration, recruitment, and so many areas. So he has the ground level knowledge and experience other than his academic background. So today we'll be talking about migration, the economic impact of migration. It's a very important topic because when you talk about Indian diaspora, we also hear about, remittance. We talk about philanthropy. We talk about investment. When you talk about China's progress, again, it is in diaspora investment. So many things we can learn from how the economic impact of migration and diaspora is happening. So today we have Dr. Ranju Rangan. So over to you, Dr. Ranju.
Thank you, Sadaji. I hope you can hear me, right? Am I audible?
Yes, Ranju, you are audible.
Yeah, fine. Thank you, Sadaji, and thank you everyone who is here. I know very little of you except Vijaya, who is the one who has been interacting with me for quite some time. Sadaji had been always my best friend in migration. So the rest of them, yes, welcome to this class. Actually, it's not even a class. Sadaji said that it's a class, but then it is, I always want this to be taken as a discussion so that we know, we share, and then we can understand more of the realities, the ground realities. And yes, there is a course, so we have to focus on the course part too. So if everyone is ready, let us start. If it is okay, can you see the
screen? You can enlarge the screen also. We can see it.
You can see it, right? I don't know how to enlarge it.
No, you just slide share below. You see the below, there is a slide share option is there within the PPT.
It is already done. Your screen is sharing. That's what they say.
But within PPT, there is a slide share option. Below, within PPT, you go below, go to there.
Right.
Somewhere there.
This one, right? This one, right?
Maybe. No, but that is, you got something else. There is slide share option. Which will
this is okay? Because in Mac, no, something else comes in.
Okay, but slide share option was appearing. You just again go there. In the PPT itself, it is there. I saw it is there.
Wait, hold on now. It's not this one, right?
No. You go to PPT, it will come. Yes, click there. I think these are all after, this thing. Okay, otherwise you carry on. Here, you go below, wherever, no, come little left.
Now left, right.
Here it is below. There, come little. That was coming actually. I think you clicked already.
This one?
This one.
Slideshow.
Yes.
Now it comes like this.
Now it's
right?
a little bigger. Okay, you carry on. I think that is okay.
So I think you can try clicking on the button that says CC to remove the captions.
This one?
Yes, sir.
Is it clear now?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Great. I hardly use this one.
It is working now.
It's working, right? First page. No, how to go for a second page? Okay, fine. So we'll start with economic impacts of migration. This is, as Sadaji said, it's a very important, very interesting topic in migration. And this covers a lot of things. a lot of areas, and this has been always an area of discussion in migration. So we'll start with the objectives. The main objectives of this study is to understand the linkage between globalization and migration. So what is globalization to do with migration? It's a very important linkage is there, which we will be discussing as we proceed. Then we'll evaluate the role of migration in the development of the economy. The development of the economy means the development of the economy of both the sending country and the destination countries. Then we will try to elaborate diaspora's entrepreneurship and investments. And then we will go into the impact of remittance on the home country. This is also a very important topic. Just now we were discussing the remittances from Gulf countries, remittances of diaspora from other countries are very important for the home country. And the impact of knowledge, technology transfer, and the international trade. Anyone who wants to have a question, you can just raise your hands or you can just ask in between, no issues. Let us start with the interlinkage between globalization and migration. Number one is that increased migration is one of the most visible and significant aspects of globalization. This has been in the earlier classes also we have told about this, that migration, the most visible reason of migration is the aspect of globalization. On the other hand, globalization dynamics, this is again very important, drive the international migration, including differences in development, demography, and democracy. The global job crisis, global labor market segmentations, communications, transportation revolutions, and transnational social networks. In one way or the other, globalization dynamics touches each and every part of the development of a nation, whether it is the sending country, origin country, or the destination country, which means migration has a lot of linkage with the modern globalization. How it is, we will come to know it later. There are also a negative consequence, which is very important. We have two kinds of migration in general. One is regular migration and one is irregular migration. I don't know how many of you understand what is irregular migration. Irregular migration happens more often in Gulf countries. This irregular migration, how will we understand if a migration or if a migrant is irregular or regular? There are very little ways to understand in the prima facie unless you sit with the migrant. For example, if a migrant comes to you and says that, yeah, I have a lot of debts in my country, I had paid a huge recruitment fees, etc., then it is clearly said, we understand that there is an irregularity that had happened in the migration process of that particular person. That means high recruitment fees, or that he has come here on a visa which is not a working visa, or that the visa of that company doesn't exist, or that the company exists, the visa is right, everything is right, but the company is in debt. So a lot of things are there in irregular migrations. This causes a very negative impact of globalization on migration. International migration, on the other hand, promotes globalization, which every one of us knows it, such as the global flow of money and goods, the rise of global cities, expanding social and cultural diversities. Gulf countries are one of the biggest example for this. Gulf countries during the 1950s was like a small villages. Many of them was not even looking like a village of Indian villages. Now they have grown into big cities, multi-storied buildings, whatnot, all because of oil and other things which they are getting, oil, natural gases, and all those things. So with So this makes that understand us that globalization process is a very important thing in the migration scenarios. The rapid expansion in cross-border flows of all sorts, beginning with finance and trade, but also ideas, ideologies, and knowledge about democratic and economic governance, cultural and media products, and people is a crucial facet of globalization. So the cross-border flow of all sorts, finance and trade, not only the industrials, but also the ideas, that is the knowledge transfers, and the democratic and economic governance, the governance of that country, both the destination and the country of origin plays a very important role in globalization. In the short run, raising trade, investment, communication, and international aid ties appear to enhance migratory links and or vice versa. This appears to confirm that the central tenet of migratory systems theory, which holds that one kind of exchange, such as trade between countries or regions, is likely to generate another form of exchange, such as people in both ways. So in nutshell, if there is a globalization happening in a country, definitely there will be an exchange of trade. When exchange of trade happens, there will be exchange of knowledge happens. If all this happens, definitely there will be inflow of people, and this inflow of people or exchange of people is again related to migration. The underlying idea is that growing social, economic, and cultural interconnectedness are exemplified by globalization, has allowed for more movement between a more diverse and geographically distant array of destination and origin countries, raising international and domestic inequalities, persistent demand for high and low skilled migrant workers in wealthy societies, just like in GCC countries, segmented labor markets, and in developing countries, a lack of opportunities, population growth, oppressions, and violent conflict appear to be explaining the rising migration. So these are the reasons which the scientists have zeroed in, saying that these are the reasons that normally explain why there is a huge migration that is happening all over the world, not only from north to north, south to south, everywhere it is happening. Now, let us look into the role of migration in the development of economy. So till now, what we have tried to understand was the globalization and migration's linkage. Now let us try to understand what is the migration or what migration has to do in the development of the economy. Both impacts of development on migration and the impacts of migration on development are debatable, and both are closely intertwined. This has been in the debate in every migration-related meetings, migration-related conventions, theories, even in research. The impact of development on migration and migration's impact on the development are something very interesting. Migration always has been linked to economic and social development, but only recently has it been incorporated into the mainstream development theory and international policy. This is something which I want every one of you to understand. Migration and development. Migration has been linked to economic and social development. But do you know how many conventions, UN ratifications are there on, or any or framework are there on this specific thing, migration and economic development? We have till now only 2 ratifications, whereas there are a lot of other ratifications coming in with migration. But when it comes to migration and to the economic and social development, we have only 2 ratifications till now. Understanding the relationship between development and migration requires the identification of concepts and the presentation of accessible data. Presentation of accessible data is very important. If you go to India, if we go to India, or if you go to a international airport, and if you ask the immigration officer how many people have migrated or how many people have traveled out on work visa, he will give you the data. But many of the airports still fail to give you the data in a way it's being divided in which category they have gone, whether it was a professional, whether it was a worker, blue collar, or whether it is something to do with scientific research. No, they don't have these data. They will only give you a number of people who has been gone, men and women, and also they will give you a data on migrant domestic workers. But there is nothing that we can get in detail as to what kind of a visa, where, what. No, they don't have it. Not only India, 90% of the countries fail to have this one. There are many reasons behind it. It's not only because that India cannot do it, but then there are reasons far beyond that one. For example, in Gulf countries, you can see in private companies, especially in private companies, there are engineers, but their visa, the profession in their visa will be technician. So there is no way that an immigrant or immigration officer will understand whether he is a really technician or an engineer. And they don't have that much of time in the airport to go through the contract and see which one is what. So they just depend upon what the employee or what the worker or the traveler says. It sometimes they say engineer, sometimes they say technician, sometimes they say manager, sometimes they say the owner. So these kind of accessible data are still missing in most of the countries. The positive effect of migration are more apparent in small countries with high migration rates and more difficult to identify in large nations with low migration rates. Large nations with low migration rate means even European countries, the migration rates are lesser when compared to Southeast Asia. So the positive effects of migration, whatever the positive effects on migration means, the effects on the economy of the sending country is more viable, it can be more accessible, it can be more seen on small countries with high migration, because there the development can be seen very faster rather than in large countries. Is there anyone wants to ask any question about it, anything which you would like to ask?
Diksha has raised her hand.
When you raise the hands, where will I see the hands now?
You can see on the screen.
Okay.
Diksha, you want to ask something?
Yes, sir. So I just wanted to ask, like you were talking about the data that is available. So how reliable are migration trackers, international migration trackers that are there? Are they a viable solution to this accessibility of data?
Look, there are different kinds of data that can be accessed. If I am a migrant, for example, if I am a migrant with my visa, what are the data you can access from my visa? If I come with a visa of a work visa, what are the kinds of data you will be able to access it? Do you know about it? No, right? You can access to know from my visa what kind of a visa it is, work visa, fine. Number two, you will understand what is the age of the person, my age, you will understand. Number two, you will see the designation of the person, the profession of the person, that is another data. You will see the name of the company from which you will know whether it is a company or a government organization. You will know the validity of the visa. So, from a single person, there are a lot of data that can be taken in. The only problem is these data to be very accurate, it has to go through a special channelized way, or it should be an evenly placed data for each country. What is evenly placed data? That means Bangladesh has recently introduced this one. What they have said is that a person who has to go to a Gulf country or anywhere, they have to bring or they have to give this visa to their immigration officer 24 hours before. They enter all these data, the name of the company, all these details, and then they seal the visa paper, and then they can only travel with the sealed this thing. This kind of data extraction needs to be done to get an acceptable, clear-cut migration details. Whatever data we have, I don't say that it is wrong, but it is always incomplete. That is the reason whenever we ask any government, what is the total amount of migrants from your country, they will just say a figure and then they will say approximately. They never say exactly. All the data are approximately. Whereas if you go to European countries, for example, Poland, Finland, Iceland, those countries, if you go and ask the immigration officer how many people have gone on any other country as a migrant or worker, they give you exact data. This number of people have gone. These are their destination countries. These are the work they are doing. These are the professions they are in. Those exact data comes in. The reason is from there, the migration is very less. From India, the migration is, from Bangladesh, the migrations are too high. So we need a more proactive system or a different way to tackle this one, which we had been asking the government to give or share certain things that needs to be, that needs to be incorporated in the immigration sector, but then I don't know. Anyway, whatever that does, yeah, tell me,
Yes,
Diksha.
I have a follow-up question, sir. So how does that work for irregular migration or people who migrate through different channels, like through non-governmental channels? How do we track that reliably?
Look, irregular, it's very difficult in the destination country, in the origin country to track if a migrant is irregular or regular. The reason is we or any other country doesn't have the access or to go through the details of some companies in any other countries. As long as you don't have those details of that particular company, or you cannot access those details, these irregular migrants cannot be stopped in that way. The only way we can stop is that we have to ensure that the sending party, whoever is the sending party, that the mediators in between, like the recruitment agencies or any other agencies, they should be held responsible if these migrants are illegal. India is doing it. It's not that India is not doing it, but then the problem is, let me tell you this way. I had spent more than 50,000 Indian rupees to come to Gulf country. Okay, I came here, and then first thing I came to know is that I am not going to get the salary which I was offered. Okay, what will I do? I will go up and down to 1 or 2 times with the company officials. They will give you X, Y number of reasons. Then I will say no. How much I'm getting? I'm getting 1,000, 2,000 rupees less. No problem. Since I came here, let me work. After 5 months, they will say that you will get your salary after 2 months or once in 3 months. Again, I will think, okay, anyway, after 2 months, I will get the salary. I will leave on. This kind of an attitude by the migrants is one of the issues which we face to find out irregular migrants. So irregular migrants, Diksha, it's not that easy to be tracked. It can be tracked, but then the government of both sending countries and origin countries should have bilateral agreements. For example, Philippines always have a bilateral agreements for their domestic workers when they send to the destination countries in Gulf. By doing so, these domestic workers hardly go through as irregular migrants. They go through as regular migrants, yet they still have this problem. So there should be a bilateral agreement between sending countries and destination countries, which is not happening with India. Is that clear?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Most welcome. Anyone else? Okay. Now,
Sir, good evening.
Yeah.
Vijaya.
Good evening. Yeah, Vijaya, tell me, how are you?
Fine, thank you, sir. I joined in between, so I did not listen first part. Anyway, I heard the question and the reason also you have given, but I would like to add one more point in that. Can I?
True, please do that.
Okay, thank you. You said about the salary that the employers, they will promise that they will pay later. But no, that is not the only reason. No, there is another reason also. The moment they land here, the travel document, yani passport, immediately the companies, they take and they keep in their, they keep themselves. And they threaten also. They say that you cannot travel. Since you have come here, you have to complete your contract period and you have to stay here. Like they force them. That part is also there. Even if the migrant
right.
who want to leave, they
You're
won't
right,
allow.
Vijaya, but you were right. I was just giving Diksha an example only. There are not only that, there are many other reasons too. You and me, we know it, right? Passport,
Yes, sir.
confiscation of passport, even the way the camps are being dealt, right?
Yes.
The contract modification of the contracts when they reach here. A lot other reasons are there, right?
Yeah.
And if we are going to discuss the same thing, then I will have to have my dinner also here. Everyone. Yes, there was one more hand was raised. Who was that?
Sanghamitra. Sanghamitra is.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir, I have another question.
Yeah.
On the first slide, it was mentioned that irregular migration is a negative consequence of globalization. So, like, how do we understand irregular migration of refugees and asylum seekers as such? Because, like, if we look into that, most of the asylum seekers also migrate irregularly, and the routes they take are also like very dangerous. Just saying that irregular migration is a negative consequence of globalization, isn't it like a one-sided view, or just like an it's not like very argued or debated upon and just like very sort of lightly taken? I mean, because there are also other factors that play in this particular aspect of irregular migration. I feel that, but I would like to hear from you. What do you think? How do we place asylum seekers and refugees?
Certain countries in Europe, during the Syria war and certain other countries, the war was there. They have started budgeting extra amount of money in their annual budget for asylum seekers and irregular migrants. Look, there are two kinds of things: refugees and asylums. I agree, it's by theory, it's an irregular migrants. But the irregular migration, which we are talking about, which is impacting the globalization, is in a different way. I will tell you the reason. The irregular migrants whom we are talking right now are those migrants who are going to be in the part of the globalization, which means they are directly being recruited to do a job in an industry that is a part of the globalization. We're agreed? Whereas asylum seekers and refugees, they are running away from their country, seeking shelter in another country to see that if they can be their lives can be protected. They are never going away from their country seeking to be a part of the globalization. However, that countries where they reach, the destination countries, wherever they reach, they may go to Europe, they may reach elsewhere because of the tracks they take it. When they reach there, the destination countries, what they have to spend over keeping these asylum seekers healthy or their life asset, no, those kind of expenses do have an impact on the globalization. But this is something which we have to discuss in a very wider view. As of now, if you look into it, even if you see the globalization, when we discuss globalization, economy, and development, we hardly bring in refugees or asylum seekers as the main players of this one. Why? Because we know that they are being out of their country seeking for life. Their priority is life. You got it? Could you understand what I said?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So it is not that, again, it's not that they are not a part of the globalization. They are, but they are not the first level actors. Whereas these irregular migrants, they are going to the country to seek the job, and the country is taking them to see that they play a part in the globalization, in building up their country's infrastructure, economic development, wherever they are. So they are direct players into the globalization, right?
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you for answering that.
Thank you. Now, oh my God. So the next thing is remittance. For example, 5.33% of Bangladesh GDP is from remittance. So that's a huge amount. But again, what we have to understand is the remittance. Just now we were discussing this one with Shades. The remittance from Gulf countries, especially the migrants from Gulf countries, the remittances which we are sending is being sent to our private accounts or our family accounts. They are spending those money in bringing up their living styles, in bringing their living styles in their own household developments and all, which is ultimately having an impact onto the development of that particular country from where they came in. However, remittances, even though they play a very big role, it is being said that the direct development, it is not a direct development fund of the government. It is an indirect development fund. This is the reason why most of the remittance comes from Gulf countries, yet Gulf country migrants are not the key players in any of the migration issues or development policies, discussions in India or elsewhere too. Number two is the multiple studies have demonstrated improvements of underprivileged population in terms of increased family assets, higher consumptions, and lower property rates. That's exactly what I said. This is not a direct fund going to the country's banks, but it is to the private banks, and that private banks through which the private parties utilizes in a way that it increases the family assets, not directly to the government. Non-financial assets acquired as a result of migration, such as human capital, creative social behavior, and political aspiration, are also transferred to migrants' home countries. The magnitude of change in the country of origin is determined by the ratio of migrants to the local population, the length of migration, and the host country's diaspora's openness and integration. So this is more than a migration. It is more into micro. It is a part of a macroeconomics. This particular thing is related with macroeconomics and migration. So the magnitude of change in a country of origin, that is for the migrants, is determined by the ratio of the migrants to the local population. From the local population, how many migrants have gone as how many has gone as migrants, and the length of migration, and the host country's diaspora openness and integration. So that is the way it is being calculated. Diaspora's involvement, migrants and their descendants contribute significantly to the growth of their home countries by investing in enterprises, participating in heritage tourism, and contributing politically or philanthropically. Diaspora expertise can enhance aid efficiency and promote the transfer of skills and informations. Impact on returns. Return migration can result in transfer of skills and technology, as well as increased investment in local economics, benefiting not just from savings, but also from social capital networks obtained overseas. Several countries like China, India, Argentina have benefited from the return of their migrants who brought with them new technologies and skills learned during their departure. Permanent and temporary returns could mitigate the detrimental effects of brain drain. So brain drain, if someone asks you, how can you mitigate the effects of brain drain, then you can immediately tell them that the first and foremost step is encourage return migration. If you can encourage return migration, whereas China, I know it very deeply, China and Argentina, both countries, they had been encouraging return migrations every after 2 years, 3 years. They used to have some fairs. I have attended once in Guangzhou, that is in China, a fair done by the Chinese government to attract return migration. And a lot of people a lot of Chinese came from US, Japan and all. And this is something which I don't think India is doing it. Sadaji, are we having this return migration fair in India?
Such things are happening. In fact, people, they are not returning with free will because of the environment, investment environment is not good, and so many other things. Once people are going, in India, many are settling actually, except golf. Except golf, there are no. If people are going to USA, Canada, Australia, and Europe, many places, they are not returning actually.
True.
So I don't know. Now things may be recession. Some people may return and do some business, but that is very, very, very less.
Okay. So this is something.
Instead of that, they are remigrate.
Yes.
Yes.
This is happening. Why? Because there is no rehabilitation and reintegration plan set state government as well as central government. They never attracted to stay back.
Most of my friends who migrated with me, they all remigrated to Europe and US. They never returned to India. So this is, but then, the return migration in China is very high. If I was not wrong, when I went to that fair, they said that it was around 13 to 14%, which is very high, in fact. That is the reason why they have huge market expansions every year. Anyway, let's continue. Impact of migration. As per the OECD migration debate, the impact of migration can be in 3 key areas as follows. Before that, can anyone tell me what is OECD? Hello. Hello.
See, I think many may be knowing, but okay, you just explain.
Yes, okay. OECD means Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Also, there we have around the recent OECD countries is around 34. 34 of them are there. And India is not one of them because all OECD countries are developed countries. And India is only a developing country. So anyway, so according to the, yes, Shahana, tell me. Hello, Shahana? Hello.
OECD gives money for development in India, but I don't think so India is a part of the OECD.
No, India is not a part of OECD because 34 countries, all the 34 countries are developed countries.
Okay.
And India is one of the beneficiaries of OECD countries.
Yeah, that's what I thought of. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. So labor market, so what is it? 47% of the increase in workforce in United States and 70 in Europe over the past tense. That is the increase of labor in those countries. Migrants fill gaps in both fast-growing and declining sectors of the economy. Young migrants have native-born people have higher levels of education than those nearing retirement. Migrants contribute greatly to labor market flexibility. So these are the impacts of migration. Number one, the labor market, how the labor market has been impacted by migrants. They contribute greatly to the labor market flexibilities. They are equally or more than the native born. I mean, the education levels are higher than the native born people. They can fill in the gaps very fast. Number two is the public purse. Taxes and social contributions made migrants exceed the benefits they get. Migrants who enter the country in search of work benefits the economy the most because they are the people who will be getting the most out of the economy through salaries, remittances, and all. The single most important factor that determines migrants' overall net physical contribution is their employment status, which is very important in India also. If you are a migrant, you need not have to pay tax. That's the only good thing that happens to migrants from India. The economic growth, migration boosts the working age population, and migrants bring valuable talents with them and contribute to the growth of human capital in the countries to which they migrate. If there is a return migration, it is to origin countries. Why focus on diaspora entrepreneurship and investment? Diaspora entrepreneurship are in an ideal position to identify possibilities in their home countries, capitalize on those chances as first comers, and contribute to the creation of jobs and advancement of economic growth. Diaspora entrepreneurship may help development by creating new firms and employment, stimulating innovations, promoting cross-border social capital, and redirecting financial and political resources to the home country. Anyone has anything to ask, or we will continue?
So please continue.
Okay. Not every entrepreneurship boosts economic growth. This is something which you have to understand. Once I was given, I don't remember when it was, during my somewhere in a meeting, this came in up. Not every entrepreneurship boosts economic growth. So what does it mean? Necessity entrepreneur. They are the people who establish tiny business because they can't find work. don't advance the economy. They may support themselves and reduce unemployment. Now, this is called necessity entrepreneurs. So in this, these are the kind of people, they start out tiny businesses when they come back from Gulf and all, and do not advance their economy. It doesn't have that much impact on the economy. However, they may support themselves and reduce unemployment. In this case, can anyone tell me what is the opposite of necessity entrepreneur who can support the economy's advancement? Which kind of entrepreneur will it be?
The ones that employ others.
Who are they?
No, Abha wanted to ask, I think, something, but
no, I was just saying, sir was saying not every entrepreneur boosts economic growth, necessary entrepreneurs who establish. So it could be also, you know, an entrepreneur could be or starting something like a delivery service or something of that sort, which was, it's not going to boost the economy, but it's going to provide a service. I don't know.
No, it's correct, but then still, anyone else? You know, I'll tell you something. Don't mind.
Also, it could be somebody who's making jams out of the local produce, which is there. While you have jams of the companies and others, you know, making something, because something I saw in UK was there were these small groups of people who used to make it for the Indian community, which they will not get in the open market, but that was sustaining them for a long time.
Done. Agreed. But what are those entrepreneurs called?
That I don't know. Here we can say MSMEs, small and micro enterprises, but I don't know about other international program or what they are called.
You know why? Purposefully, I left that one to ask this question to know that how many of you had read your unit before you came to attend this class. In your unit, it is clearly written in 7.3.1. There are two kinds of entrepreneurs. One is necessity entrepreneurs. The other one is opportunity entrepreneurs.
Okay, so I've given the example of both, but I don't know.
Agreed. Agreed. 100% agreed. You know, it is why I have it's not to, I know every one of you are busy, but then it is always good to read the unit which we are going to take in advance, so that you can grasp the things much better than just having just listening to what we have to say, because whatever we are trying to teach you or explain to you will be a kind of continuation to the unit. So no harm. So this is exactly what you said is right, perfectly right. But then at times we need that particular name, necessity entrepreneur. The other one is opportunity entrepreneurs, right?
Right, sir. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Countries with strong diaspora entrepreneurship have better economic development prospects, aggressive diaspora encouragement policies, excellent governance, favorable social culture conceptions of entrepreneurship, social capital, and access to financial institutions and capital sources. Countries with strong diaspora entrepreneurship have better economic development. We have strong diaspora entrepreneurship or not? Can you tell me? Anyone can tell me whether India has a strong diaspora entrepreneurship or not?
I think they are trying to do now, but earlier I have my doubt, because I mean, one state where I feel that the diaspora entrepreneurship had a lot to do was the Gujarati community, from that Gujarati basically, but the rest of the country I don't think so. We were too much of a diasporic entrepreneur.
Well, look, this is a very tricky question that came in a discussion in one of our discussions in UN human rights. India has a very strong diasporic entrepreneurship, yet in India, the entrepreneurships are very less. Why? The only reason behind which we could zero down was the governance, the problems of governance and corruption. If you go to India, I myself have seen this one. If you go to India, if you go to Kerala, I'm basically from Kerala. If you go to Kerala, you want to start a small, for example, let us say a small mill. Let us say that you want to start a small mill. You buy a plot with all the savings you had, you build the house. Now you start going to the panchayat. They will give you X, Y, Z reasons not to give you the, whatever the documentations. You go to electricity board, they will not give you the current. You go to the other departments, they will try not to have those person in that unless otherwise you pay them huge amounts of black money, because they think that you have money, you came from Gulf, you pay us what we ask, then we'll give you the required documents. Whereas if you go to China, if you say that you want to open a company or this thing, the government will give you beforehand all what is required. They will give you everything at ease. They will be at your service. That's the difference. So in short, let us take it, the growth of business, the creation of new jobs, and the introduction of innovative ideas are all promoted by diaspora entrepreneurship. They can do all these things, yet we cannot find the right persons, right entrepreneurship in India because of the governance problem. Diaspora's direct investment creates economic, social, and political capital through global networks. Diaspora entrepreneurship taps into social capital through cultural and linguistic understandings. Entrepreneurship and economic developments are positively linked. So there is an entrepreneurship coming up. It is positively, economic development is positively linked to it. Anyone has something to ask? If not, we'll go to impact of remittance on the home country. How is remittance being impacted in the home country? Remittance are defined as the sum of workers' remittance, employees' compensations, and migrant transfers. Remittance has become an important source of foreign capital for many developing countries in recent decades, despite developing countries' increasing reliance on private capital flows. As a primary source of funding, there is no consensus in policy debates on the impact of remittance on economic growth and poverty. This is something who would like to do a PhD in migration. I suggest that you should find out, get in deep on this particular thing. This is a very, very interesting, very, very hot coming subject in migration. Despite developing countries' increasing reliance on private capital flow as a primary source of funding, there is no consensus in policy debates on the impact of remittance on economic growth and poverty. Recorded remittance. Why I have highlighted the word recorded, I'll tell you later, are more than twice as large as official aid and account for roughly 2/3 of all foreign direct investment in developing nations. In many poor countries, remittances constitute the primary source of external financing. Workers' remittance have surpassed the FDI as the second most important source of private external finance for developing countries. So workers' remittance has surpassed the fixed deposit investment as the second most important source of private external finance for developing countries. Is there anyone who wants to ask anything? Fine. Next one is diaspora bonds. A diaspora bond is a debt instrument issued by a country or potentially a sub-sovereign entity or even a private corporation to raise the financing from its overseas diaspora. When governments lose access to international capital market, diaspora bonds provide a dependable and low-cost source of external cash. These bonds provide diaspora investors with the option to support the country of origin while also creating an investment opportunity. So this is exactly what India is also doing. Can anyone tell me which country has introduced diaspora bonds for the first time in the world? Anyone knows it?
Not me.
In 1951, if I'm not wrong, in 1951, Israel started this one, and it was a very, very grand success in that time. After that, many other countries did do it, but India took another 10 more years, 20 more years. It started in 1976, if I'm not wrong. Somewhere there only they have started these diaspora bonds. Generate a steady stream of foreign exchange earnings that can improve a country's creditworthiness for external borrowing, and through innovative financing mechanism can expand access to capital and lower borrowing cost. So these are the impacts of diaspora's investment. They have a large positive effect on national income, contribute significantly to poverty reduction and income inequality, may promote financial developments. Now, we should know what are these remittance channels. Remittance channels were migrant on a short-term worker or a sender in the host country. They will use either the commercial banks, money transferring companies, credit unions, post office, bus or courier companies, collection agencies, hawala operators point, friends and relatives. You know, anyone knows what is hawala?
It's an illegal system of transferring money.
That's it. It's a very illegal system. It is known in different names in different countries. In India, it is only known as hawala. If you go to Bangladesh, it is known as hundi. If you go to Sri Lanka, it is known as kundi. And you know, different ways of different names are there, but all it's illegal. So many of these migrant workers, they depend on these hawalas because they transfer the money very, very fast. If you give the money in the morning, within 10 to 15 minutes or maximum within half an hour, it reaches your relatives by cash. And they are very trustworthy. But doing that one, they are trustworthy. But the way they are doing is wrong. So the point of remittance and transfer and at the network linkage is either through messaging infrastructure, SWIFT, telegraphic transfers, telephonic messages, web-enabled instructions, physical transport of cash or goods, and the point of remittance either in the bank, money transfer company, credit, bus, courier, collection, hawala agents, reception, recipient's location, anything. So this is the cycle of remittance channel. Most of them are still in practice. We still practice most of these transferring methods in Gulf countries too. ILO's instruments on remittance. We have two instruments. Number one is the Migration for Economic Convention 1949, Article number 9, which says the convention states that each member of which this convention is in force undertakes to permit, taking into account the limits allowed by national laws and regulations concerning export and import of currency, the transfer of such part of the earnings and savings of migrants for employment as the migrants may desire. So this is where here in Qatar we have in a week you can send maximum of 45,000 Qatari riyal, not more than that. If you want to send it, then you have to take a special permission from the central bank. That is one convention, and one more is there, is the Labor Migration Principle 15, which asserts that the contribution of labor migration to employment, economic growth, development, and the elevation of poverty should be recognized and maximized for the benefit of both origin and destination countries. For implementing the provision, Article 15.5 asks for providing incentives to promote productive investment of remittances in the countries of origin, and Principle 15.6 suggests to reduce the cost of remittance transfer. So this is just for your knowledge. Impact of knowledge, technology transfer, and international trade. Migrant impacts on innovation of knowledge generation in destination countries. The Nobel Prize is an somebody is having their yes, thanks. The Nobel Prize is an exciting indicator of migrants' contribution to technological innovation. From its inception through 2016, the Nobel Prize has been bestowed on 579 individuals and organizations. More than 100 of the 350 winners, 100 of the 350 winners living in United States at the time of their award were immigrants born elsewhere. This is how US had been tapping the knowledge from outside country. Highly skilled migrants contribute substantially to technology innovations and research and development in destination countries, particularly high-income countries. So there are highly skilled migrants. They contribute substantially to the technological innovations in high-income countries. Diaspora Knowledge Network. This emerged in 1990s as organization of highly qualified expatriates eager to contribute to the growth of their home countries. For mobility studies and migration policies, this meant shifting the existing emphasis from brain drain to brain gain and from physical return of individuals to distant but dense and ongoing connections. Decans has sparked curiosity and expectations as new players in the migration development arena. However, there have been met with some skepticism, uncertainty, and criticism regarding their ability to efficiently fulfill a development role. Activities of Deacon's contributions have been observed are summarized in the following list: exchange of scientific, technical, administrative, or political information, specialist knowledge transfer, scientific or technological diplomacy, or promoting home country in the R&D and business communities of the host country, joint projects partially or on a virtual basis, training, attending home country sessions, meeting, mentoring students abroad, enterprise creation, to assist the possible return of expatriates on a part-time or permanent basis, ad hoc consultation for examples on research and development of projects, etc. Before we conclude, anyone has anything to ask? Hello.
I think
I just wanted to ask one thing. There is also a lot of debate which is going on, specifically in the developed countries, which says the migration needs to be controlled because resources are being overused because of a lot of migration which is happening. While they're contributing to the development, but there is also a lot of resources, and there is a tendency to push migration to certain areas rather than that. into the biosensitive zones and other things. Anything regarding that is available for reading on?
Well, I can definitely share this one. You have my WhatsApp number, right? I can WhatsApp you. I don't know. Well, I can give you a small reason as to why this one is. Migration has to be controlled. The idea of controlling migration, even though development is happening, came out from European countries. And they had a reason. The reason, first of the reason was most of the European countries are small by area. Their expansion, they don't want a huge migrant community to come in because that was having an impact on their culture. They had an impact on their demographics. They had an impact on certain other areas. Whereas there is a contradictory to this statement. The example is Canada. Canada is inviting more migration, right? They have even increased the number of people to be taken by 2024 by another 15 to 20% from what it is happening now.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to UK, if you go to Europe, and if you go to Canada, if you see the developments, both countries are having equal developments. Yet Canada, why they are asking for more migrants? That is something which we have to understand. European countries have, the community, the European community is more or less, they are mixed, homogeneous, the heterogeneously mixed, in the sense that most of the, even we Indians, if we go to UK, it was once they were ruling us, right? They were ruling a part of Africa. They were ruling most of the Asian countries, right? So they still have that stigma behind them, even if we contribute to the development. Whereas if you go to Canada and all, they don't have that kind of a stigma. When there is no stigma of that sort, they welcome them, all their migrants, as one of them. Once they welcome them into their community and they merged into their, and we can be easily getting merged into their community as a Canadian, we will think that Canada is our country. Whereas in Europe, we used to go to Europe, we used to go and work there, we used to get their passport, yet they feel they are not a part of the community. I have a colleague of me working with me. She is basically the Gujarati. Her grandfathers had migrated to Europe, and she was born and brought up there. And when I used to discuss with her, she used to tell me, said, Ranju, look, my father, even my grandfather, we were born there, yet we still don't feel, that is 3 generations ahead, they were there, yet we still don't feel that we are a European person. We still feel that we are an Indian European. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you go to Canada, you can't see Indian diaspora or who has been there, they will not say that I am an Indian Canadian. They always want to say that we are Canadians. Whereas if you come to India, most of the people coming from UK, they will say that I am an Indian UK.
Right.
So those are the things. It's rather more politicalized than a migrant. Right. So let us conclude. International migration and economic development are intricately linked. In the long run, each benefits the other in a various cycle. Accordingly, migration is one of the several ways of development. Without this fundamental knowledge, migration policy can go horribly wrong. While there has been an increase in the number of new projects aimed at reaching out to diaspora organizations, there is also a need for effective cooperation, coordination, and long-term planning. Many countries of origin have begun to include their diaspora when planning development and developing strategies and action plans. Other countries of origin, in contrast, do not yet have the structures in place to capitalize on the growth potentials of their diaspora. Closer collaboration among development players who recognize the potentials of diaspora would open new avenues for the development of migrants' home countries. That's all for today. Anything else anyone can ask? If you want to ask me after the class, anytime you can WhatsApp me. If you don't have the number, you can ask Sadaji.
You are there in the group, I think.
Yeah, I'm there in the group too. Yes,
You can ask.
the group also can.
Yes.
In the group also, anyone can ask. If anyone wants to ask now, most welcome. Else we will conclude, right, Sadaji?
Yes, yes, yes. So, if there is no question, I thank all of you and Ranju for taking a very good class and provoked lots of, thought-provoking idea he gave, so that, I could see the participation and all this. So thank you, Ranju, Dr. Ranju. We'll meet again, maybe some other topic, some other day.
Sure. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for attending. Thank you.
So goodbye to everyone.
Bye.